SOSG, 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 standing on solid ground. Hello, this is Kim with Standing on Solid Ground. I am your host of this motivational and inspirational podcast, and today's essential warrior, Joseph. Joseph was the 11th son of Israel, or as we know him, Jacob. And Jacob found favor in Joseph in such a great magnitude that he had made him a coat of many colors. It was like an ornament or a token of his love towards Joseph. Now, as we all know, if we all have siblings, that there is jealousy among siblings when parents pay more attention to one child than to the other. And when one child is getting more attention than the other children are, sometimes those other siblings conspire something to do away or to hurt or do harm to a younger or someone that is of that favoritism of their parents. And in this case, Joseph was that target, and his brothers reared up against him. Now, what their plan was to slay him. And they didn't want to do that. The other siblings was like, no, let's not do that. Let's not do harm to him. For they knew that there was going to be a great repercussion for that harm if they decide to slay him like Cain did to Abel, because of jealousy. And because God found favor in Abel, Cain got jealous. Well, this is the same instance, only is among siblings in a way where the parents are showing favoritism toward this child. Well, they decided to snatch the coat off of him and throw him in a hole somewhere. And then later on down the line, they sold him to an enemy, so to speak. Well, God had favor with Joseph. You know, even though people may not like you and they may not like the attention that you're getting, and they feel jealous or they feel like that you're not so great because everybody's making such a fuss over you, that, you know, they want to see you in a bad state. But God had a different plan for Joseph's life. And the only way that he could get Joseph in a position of where he wanted him to be, he allowed his brothers to turn against him. Well, after they sold him, they decided, okay, we got rid of him. Let's go slay some animals. Let's dump this coat in the blood of these animals and take it home to our father and show him that Joseph is no longer with us. But in a way where they believed that were making their father believe that an animal had attacked them. And it grieved Jacob. Oh, it just broke his heart so much that, you know, here it is. This is one of his favorite sons. And harm has come his way that it grieved him. And they did not know the capacity of how much grief their father, Israel or Jacob, was going to encounter due to this loss. Well, as the story continues on, Joseph was met up with a king. And this king took a liking to him and found good things about him. And he could see that God was with him because his area, his dimension, was being blessed. And he knew that Joseph was of a good man, that he made him ruler over his palace and over his people, gave him a ring and everything. And if I remember correctly, I spoke about that ring with Mordecai when and with Haman, when that king gave them rings, but they ended up hanging Haman because of his deceit. But he blessed Mordecai, and any law that was written, they stamped it with that ring, meaning it's almost like a notary stamping something as a concealed and a legal document. And in this case, Joseph was blessed to do so as well. Well, these men had dreams, and they kept having these same dreams, and Joseph was able to interpret these dreams to these men, and especially in the jail. Joseph had ended up in a jail cell because of some vicious lie that went out, and it's because of this king's wife. The king's wife stated that, Joseph tried to sleep with her. Well, of course, she knew that wasn't true. She wanted him. He didn't want her, so she had to lie on him. And that was not pleasing in the eyes of God. But if it kept him safe and it kept him from harm's way, so to speak, then God was going to put him in a place where no harm could come to him. And a baker, and I believe I cannot think of the other duty of another man, where they both had dreams, and Joseph had interpreted these dreams. And when he interpreted these dreams, I know the baker lived, but the other man, he was hung. And this is what Joseph had told these two men in the interpretations of their dream. And I remember when Joseph told the baker, remember me, when you are confronted with the king, remember me. Well, right away, when he restored his job back onto him as a baker, and he hung the other man, he kept quiet. He didn't want to say anything. But the king had a dream, and he needed someone to interpret this dream. And this is when the baker decided to speak up and say, I know someone that can interpret dreams, because he interpreted my dreams, and he interpreted the other servant's dream. And he told me that you would forgive me and give me my job back, but however, you would not be forgiven to the other person, and you will hang him. And his interpretation has come to pass. And so the king sought for him and told him to come on, bring him to me. Well, when he brought him to him, and he interpreted this dream, he found favor in him, made him ruler, made him just the biggest thing in this part of his palace and his dominion over the city that he was over at that time, or reigning over. Well, the wife, found him kind of attractive, and, she wanted to do what she wanted to do, and he ran. He ran and left his garments behind. He just ran because he didn't want to forsake the king like that. Now, because he did that, of course, they sought after him to kill him. But God found favor in him, and God protected him, and he kept him from that death sentence. And in doing so, he found himself in another city where he reigned. Well, this dream that this king had spoke of, he told him that there was going to be a famine, that 7 years there was going to be plenty of food for everyone to eat. And for 7 years there was going to be a famine, that they needed to store up their food, because it was not going to be plenty of food for them to eat during that time of famine. Well, of course, this came to pass, and Pharaoh was the one that Joseph was under, or second command, or however you want to place it. He was speaking to Pharaoh at this time. Well, as time went on, the 7 years, the grounds was plentiful. The food was great. But after the 7 years, the first 7 years has passed, the 7 years of famine was come. Now, it's amazing how God worked that out, because all this time, Israel, Jacob, thought that his son was dead all of these years. And he felt that grievance in his heart and in his spirit, that I'm sure that his brothers lived with that guilt for quite some time. Well, they found out, or Jacob knew of or learned of, that there was food where actually Joseph was reigning, but they didn't know that he was still alive. They didn't have any idea. And so Jacob sent them along their way and said, go and get some food so we can have something to eat, and make sure that you take money to pay for this food. Well, when the brothers came into the country to get some food, Joseph hid his face. He did not want them to know who he was. He didn't want to expose himself right away. And in a lot of ways, we can be malice like that a little bit. Now, I'm not saying that he did something against God, and I'm not saying that God was displeased, but I'm sure that in his heart of hearts, he was still angry at his brothers. And he wanted to kind of taunt them a little bit, which I don't think that's cool, because that stuff do come back to get you. It comes back to haunt you. Even though you may not have done them any harm, just the fact that you didn't right away come forth and tell them who you are, you kind of taunt them a little bit. I don't think that was a good thing. Well, in the conversations that he had with these men who happened to be his brother, he told them, how is your father? Now, that to me would have triggered something. He asked about the father, and then he asked about the youngest child, which was Benjamin, who was the 12th son. But these men, these brothers, never caught on to what was happening. And he told them that when you come back, make sure you bring your youngest son. The youngest brother. Make sure you bring him with you. Well, they went back home with the food, and the money was still in there. They had plenty to eat for quite some time. But when the food ran out, they needed to go get some more. And Jacob told them, no, you go back and get some more food. And they explained to him, well, Father, if we go back, we have to take the youngest child with us. That is the only way that he will see us and to give us more food. And Jacob was kind of hesitant about that, because he didn't want to lose another child, because he felt he already lost one. He didn't want to lose another one. For this was the youngest child of his whole family. Jacob was against it at first, but the brothers had to plead with him. And he begged them, please let us take him with us. This is the only way we're going to get any food. Well, as a result, Jacob did finally give in and allow them to take Benjamin with him. And when they arrived back to where Joseph was, Joseph still didn't right away tell him or them who they were. And then I guess the guilt got to him so bad that he wanted to be mad at him so bad. But just to see Benjamin, it just possibly crumbled his heart. To know that this is the youngest, this is the one under him. And finally he revealed himself and let them know, I'm still alive. Now the brothers felt like, oh boy, oh man, this is not good. This is not good. Have you ever confronted someone that you mistreated? You've done wrong. You laughed at, you mocked, you made fun of, you hurt, you harmed some kind of way, and you have to confront them again. Have you ever been in that situation? And I'm sure that those brothers were probably shaking in their boots because they realized they did Joseph wrong. And they also realized that now they have to go and tell their father that his son is still alive. That is a thing about karma, which we call it today. And then the old saying, what goes around comes back around. But in this day and time, it was known as whatsoever man sow, that shall he also reap. Now they had to face this person that they done wrong. And I'm sure that they were afraid because they knew he would not forget what he or what they have done to him. And they told him, I want you to go and I want you to get my father. Because he had sent them all away at first because they had to plead with Joseph in allowing Benjamin to go back because their father made it so clear that they did not want their father to be grieved to the point of death if he lost Benjamin too. He didn't want to take that chance. They allowed him to go back the first time, and they had a golden cup where Joseph hid in Benjamin's bag. And the 4 footmen slowed them down, caught them possibly halfway home, and they bought some of them back. And Joseph told them, you go get my father, and you bring him back and tell him that I'm still alive. That's a total embarrassment. That's like egg on your face. Number one, you see that your brother is still alive. And he's of reign. He has position. He has power. And you don't know what he is capable of doing. But in his own way, he found forgiveness in his heart. Now, as they went back, the brothers went back, the few that he sent back, and told them their brother is still alive, that Joseph is still alive. And of course, after all these years, their father didn't believe. Israel was like, no, you toying with an old man's heart. Don't do that. But they had to convince him by certain things that Joseph has said to them, that he has replied to their father, or stated again to their father, to make him realize, he's still alive. Yes, he is. I'm finally going to go and see my son. And he did. He left and he went. And Pharaoh had made places for him. He did everything to open up the doors for his family. Welcome them with open arms. Now, a person with a hard heart and vengeance in their heart, they probably wouldn't have fed them, and they never would have invited them to come and be with them, because that's that demon thought, that demonic thought, that demonic spirit, that vengeance. You want to get revenge for what they did. But God melted his heart and softened it. And he made sure that Joseph did the right thing. And he did. He did so up until his father's death. And then he went and he asked that he have permission to go and bury his father. And they did, and they came back. This essential warrior was a dream interpreter. He was a ruler. He could tell you what your dreams meant. And he was not hiding anything from anybody. He told nothing but the truth. And God found favor with Joseph because of his stern hand. Now, he wasn't unruly. He wasn't ungodly, and he didn't sin against God. Although I know in his spirit, he really, really, really wanted to get back at his brothers. But in due season, God had everything already mapped out. But for right now, it wasn't the time. It is important for us to understand and to gravitate and hold on to that God will find favor in us when we do the right thing. When we, in spite of what we feel and in spite of what we know about what that other person has done to us, we got to find it in our hearts to forgive. He was a ruler. He was a ruler over many things. And God did not want him to lose his ranking because of sin. And this is what happens to a lot of us. We get ahead of ourselves and we get empowered. And then we abuse our power towards those that done wrong to us. Instead of being like Jesus and say, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. We got to get to that state of mind. And that's where Joseph found himself. Forgiving his brothers for what they have done to him. But nevertheless, God still found favor in him. And he never lost his luster in God's eye. And this is what we need to learn how to do. We need to learn how to follow these footsteps in order for us to have a prosperous life. This is Kim with Standing on Solid Ground. You have yourself a wonderful and blessed day.